Apparently there's been a Classic Plus survey. I heard nothing about that, so we'll see. If Blizzard is actually planning on going Classic Plus, for real, not S2D, Classic Plus, I would be so hyped about that. The only thing that scares me is that they would make us pay for it. Like, oh, you want Classic Plus? $70. Like you have to pay an extension or something.
So you may have seen it already, but there has been a classic survey floating about recently, which people have been naming a Classic Plus survey. And today I thought I'd take a look over some of the questions. Now, I'm not too convinced about how real it is personally. I feel as though far too few people are posting about this, and something of this caliber would be pretty huge news. Then again, whether it's real or not, I do think it poses some questions which would be brought up in a Classic Plus scenario. So I think it's worth talking about either way. Also worth mentioning before we get going is I'm probably going to be drawing some parallels to old school RuneScape, because I've been reading a few opinions and the questions they're asking on these surveys, and the amount of times I've read the word sounds like retail is far too many. If Classic...
Well, I do agree that if you have to take a Classic survey, a Classic Plus survey, I think one of the best things you can do is look at RuneScape. RuneScape is probably the game that has made a Classic server that works. So if you want to make a Classic Plus server that works, you should probably take a lot of note on what RuneScape did.
Plus ever happens, it's going to have stuff from retail in it, I can pretty much guarantee you. It might not straight away, but it will. If you look at old school RuneScape, that released in 2013, and it was a snapshot of their servers from 2007. And with their player-driven polling system, they were adding completely new content into the game the polling system. The space of a year. And on top of that, they have remodeled a lot of content from RuneScape.
And look at that, all the polls, you know they're asking the right questions because they have 94% vote, 88% vote, 92, 93, 97, 95. Like the devs that are actually asking the question to the community knows what the community wants. Because we would see like a ton of things that would be 50-50, 60-40, something like that.
3, that's their equivalent of retail, and tailored it into classic so it fits into the universe story-wise, it looks the part, and it fits mechanically as well. And I'm just saying, over retail's many years of history, they've had a lot of very good updates. If this Classic Plus thing happens, it would be an ongoing server. If it's just classic era plus a little bit of extra stuff, I just don't think people are going to stick around. So as the server progresses, I think people are going to get more open to change if it does indeed happen. Just wanted to get that out of the way though, but let's take a look at
Depends what the changes are.
So below are a mix of features that could be included in a new version of World of Warcraft. So we have new or unexplored storylines and lore. This one's pretty much a given and something which would need to happen. There are a bunch of stories in the game which are unfinished and could be picked back up. Not really much to add on that one, but it would be something that would need to happen. New reputations and rewards. Again, this goes along with new stories and lore. You meet new factions, new groups of people within the game, and they would have new rewards. New or reimagined raids.
But they need to feel special. You cannot just add a reputation and just, oh, go kill these mobs and you're gonna have the new reputations, because everybody's gonna come there at the same time. There's gonna be some, well, there's gonna be some good PvP, but still, it needs to be new. It needs to feel new.
Quite a substantial amount of raiding content at level 60 already. Obviously, I'd like to see new raids, who wouldn't? But you could also add maybe a new wing to existing raids to flesh them out a bit more and give people a reason to get excited about them. But again, this would be something that would happen. Exactly the same comment for new or reimagined dungeons.
Yeah, you could have like a new piece of gear, like a tier set that's super strong for like the next big raid they want to put out. And to be ready for that raid, you could add one boss to each raid. So one boss to Molten Core, one bus to AQ, one bus to Naxxramas, one bus to BWL, you know what? And you have to spawn these boss one after another and kill them like in a span of hours or something. Like that could be a great challenge. And then you have your new tier set if you're up to the challenge. That would be nice, to be honest. And a reason to actually clear the old raids if you're fully geared.
Both new dungeons will be good, as well as adding to existing ones. New or future races brought back. So I don't think you need to add races from the future of the game into it, because they would have to be added in a pretty jarring way, where they don't really already exist within the universe. We do have a lot.
What about Blood Elves and Draenei?
We've got Firbolg, Ogre, Worgen, High Elves, Goblins, and so on and so forth. There's enough content there where we could group up with a new faction that we've never done before. So new races,
A new
yes.
faction?
Future races, probably not. New or future
I don't know.
classes pulled back. Eventually, this will be something that would happen, but I'm not talking about it from launch or anything. But when the server's a few years old, this would make sense in time. Now, this wouldn't involve copy-pasting
Ooh.
DK, putting
Ooh.
in Classic and saying job done. You'd have to put
This is exactly what Blizzard would do. We know Blizzard way too well. They would definitely do exactly that. They would just pull the DK. There you go, man. OP class. No, I think if Classic goes out, I think we should not add new classes because we know Blizzard is gonna fuck that up super hard. Oh my god, I don't want to see that.
put some effort into this. Equally with new classes, again, maybe, why not? Perhaps the Tinker class, for example, that's one I'm surprised we haven't seen.
Yeah, we keep
in
talking about
retail
this
yet.
class.
You could
Never
even
seen
have
it.
with two specializations. You could
At this
have
point,
the
I don't
Goblin
think
Spec
they're gonna add it
Tinker,
to the
which
game.
is all about explosions and bombs and damage, and then the Gnomish one, which is more tanky, and they can conjure shields, throw out target dummies, and reduce damage taken. Minor class changes.
That would be interesting,
Again,
if
this
done
would be
right.
something that I'd want to see. Not to the extent of Season of Discovery. They've gone a bit crazy in Season of Discovery, but some people are like that, which is fine. But if Paladins had a taunt, Rep Pallies had something to do other than right click.
Yeah.
The hybrid DPSs didn't go Ooman and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
That would
like
be
the
good.
Moonkin too.
Returning player
Would be nice.
re-entry feature. And I'm going to bundle this together with new
But not SOD class change, but minor class change. I do agree with that. Definitely, some class actually needs change, and they need also some tuning. Some classes are probably too OP compared to other classes, but you also have to take in consideration PvP. Because for example, the warriors are definitely the top DPS in raids, but they're definitely not good in PvP, right? They are good in PvP, but they need a pocket healer to follow them, right? If they encounter a mage in 1v1, they are not going to win if the mage semi know what he's doing.
experience.
Returning
the
player
next
re-entry
one.
feature?
So I think
Okay.
that Classic's initial hook, its first moments of leveling, are kind of important to the whole game because things don't speed up after you first get through those initial starting zones and levels.
Sure.
It's a slow-paced game and it stays that way. And if you play it at the start and you think this isn't for me, I don't think that's going to change if they speed you through the first 10 or 20 levels or give you a bunch of gear for free. I don't think Blizzard should be afraid to let Classic be what it is in terms of its original format, so I wouldn't touch either of these things.
Well, it's still Classic Plus. I can make a small example that what they could do to change the new player experience. I played hardcore with two players. We had a hunter and I was a paladin healer, right? The mail gear or even leather gear that gives agility between level 20 and like level 45 is miserable. Like every single dungeon you're gonna do is not gonna drop these gear. You're only gonna have plate, you're only gonna have leather with intellect, you're a lot of cloth, mail for the tanks, right? Nothing that a rogue or a hunter would need, for example, or even a feral druid, right? I think they could balance at least the drops in dungeons. They could add some just to so that the other class are not completely forgotten for like a couple of levels. That could be like a small change that would make a big difference. And it would also make that these classes, instead of questing by themselves, might be more interested in playing with other players and doing dungeons.
New group events and rewards. So I'm assuming this will be more tailored towards open world activities. I think with this, I'd want to see what exactly it's going to be.
Group events and
before
reward,
it goes into the game, to be honest. But
100%.
in theory, it would be good. Ongoing class tuning and polish. Again, yes, you would need to do this. Pretty much every other MMO ever has done this. Classic
like I
is
said,
a really
Warrior 2 OP,
weird exception in that it never balances
keep in mind
everything
PvP.
more or less. At the same time, it's a bit of a double-edged topic because
there
I've seen
you go.
how class balancing has gone in Season of Discovery, and Blizzard have said that they don't expect it to be perfect, but honestly, the players do. They do expect it to be perfect, and the amount of...
They do, and one thing, to be honest, I think in Classic, because the raids are so easy, PvP should be the main priority to actually balance. If PvP is more balanced, people will actually want to play more classes anyway. Because it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter PvE. PvE is easy. If you have a guild, you probably have a spot. Unless they start putting out like new raids and they're starting to get harder and harder when the meta is going to come back, this is where you would add to add some things. But you need to be so careful because you're going to fuck some classes up.
just constant complaining about the state of class balance has been something which, whenever I go to read about Season of Discovery, is something I find. So something ongoing would be good, but I just don't know how well the players are going to react to it. Guild Bank, I mean, the alternative is you have an alt that you trade stuff to. So
Guild Bank,
sure.
Add a price to it,
You could
though.
even make it a bit of a gold sink within the game.
There you go.
Collections UI where you could store your mounts, toys, and companions in classic era. This is a bit of a funny one, really. There are some toys in the game which are a lot of fun to use, but they're
not transmog, please. Do not put transmog in classic. Classic needs to be classic for that. The transmog is not part of that game.
Kits, so realistically you can never use them, such as the Orb of Deception is one that comes to mind.
I see. Toys.
And if you look in Season of Discovery at the moment, they have that toy that turns you into a goblin, and everyone's using it all the time because they are a lot of fun, and if they're in a toy UI, you can use them whenever. Also, if they're in a UI like this, that makes them usable cross characters. You have sort of less of this main character identity, and when you've earned something on your main, you'd also be able to use it on your alt. So say there's some new really rare mount from whatever it is, a raid, from PvP, from some new rep grind, you would technically be able to use that on your roll to level 40 straight away. I don't know if that's something you want to go down. I think initially this would have to be a no, but it depends how many new things they end up putting in the game. Dual talent specialization.
Okay, just part of collection. I think part of classic is knowing what the guy in front of you is, like what he have achieved, just by looking at him, right? You can see his mount, you know, oh my god, this guy has the Zolgarim mount. Oh my god, this guy, he killed Naxxramas at least once, right? This is part of classic, and if you add too many toys that people can, for example, alter their appearance, for example, how was it called, the Noggin Fogger Elixir? People are actually using that to turn into a skeleton, right? What if Noggin Fogger is not even a thing in the game right now? It's a toy. You can literally spam it and always be a skeleton. You would just go into town, and instead of seeing all those people with their gear and their mount, you would just see a bunch of fucking skeletons. That wouldn't feel right, to be honest.
Another huge question here. I think this has been really successful in Season of
Oh
Discovery.
yeah, definitely.
Personally.
Oh my god, dual specialization. I think this should be added in Classic. I 100% think this should be added in Classic. And for one reason and one reason only. In Classic, you need two spec, any expansion. You always have a spec for PvE, if you want to heal, DPS, or tank. And then you want a class for PvP. Some class can actually have both at the same time. Some rogues probably can get out with it. Mages, like if you're Frost Mage, you can actually do some PvP and some PvE at the same time. But what if you're a tank warrior? What if you're a tank warrior and you want to be a big Zug arm warrior when you're in PvP? Well, you can't. You just can't. So dual specialization would be so cool.
I don't mind some degree of gold sync still being added to it instead of a one-time cost. And I wouldn't even mind seeing some kind of consumable profession item that can be used to reset your talents remotely, such as an alchemy potion that makes you forget stuff, a engineering helm that zaps you and resets your talent points, just something like that. I think this is particularly true for people that want to PvP as well, and PvP doesn't need more barriers to entry than it already has in Classic. Improved social features, so implementation of the updated social systems, global chats, guild, pre-made, group finder, and so on. So yes to some, no to others. I think with the guild changes, it's kind of fine as it is at the moment. It's not terribly useful either way. Global chats, I'm not really sure what they mean. I think it works fine. You just tick the ones that you want, and you don't tick the ones you don't want, and that's okay. Job done.
But I think, especially the looking for group should be almost part of a tutorial at the beginning. Like I've seen so many new players in SOD that didn't know the looking for group chat existed. Everyone is only using that. They're like, oh, I cannot find any dungeons. No one wants to do dungeons with me. And as soon as I tell them about that, they're like, oh, I can finally find a group for dungeons, right? So this should almost be checked in right at the beginning. Or if they want to make some improvements, it should be like different.
However, yes, actually, I do want that. And I'm not talking about the one that teleports you to a dungeon and automatically
the pre-made group is cool.
People, but
this is basically LFG bulletin board, but better. It's so better. I think a pre-made group should almost be added in Classic. I think this is fine. We're literally using that anyway, right? With LFG bulletin board, we're doing the same exact thing. So it exists or it doesn't exist, we're doing the same.
The fact that people are still just using a chat channel where you have to spam looking for group, and that's all the game has at its base format. Just a chat channel that you spam in. It's really bad. The LFG bulletin board add-on literally has millions of downloads because of how comically unusable the basic
6
UI is.
million.
Put the pre-made group
Wow.
finder in the game, give people a bit of an easier time putting a group together. Next up, so below is a list of potential quality of life features that could be included in a new version of Classic.
Okay.
Revamping or adding flight paths, boats or zeppelins to Azeroth to make
yes.
travel around the world more efficient.
Yeah.
We've all seen the pictures, right, of some guy that's missing one flight path and their flight literally wants to take them through a zigzag.
And just that zone, I just want to talk about it because it happened to me during Classic WoW, and for me it didn't make sense. I think we were going from Ratchet to Desolas or something like that as an Alliance player, and we were going straight to Mulgore. And in my mind I was like, we are in war against the Horde, right? Like, are we that stupid to fly above a main city? We didn't like fly above Thunderbluff, but we fly above Mulgore. Like that's suicide for us. If they have archers on the mountains, they would definitely put us down. So to me, it makes sense to go below it or above it. But that is way exaggerated. Where is it? This is Ratchet. Oh, because you need the Azara run, I think. Yeah, you need to go through Azara and then you go there. But yeah, definitely they could revamp them. Like this one could be straight here, for example. But yeah, if you're missing flight path, it's part of Classic. Like go get that flight path that's in between, and that's it, right?
Of the entire
it's
map
part of
to
the
where they want to
exploration.
go. I mean, it's completely stupid, but it's also kind of funny and part of the game. And at the end of the day,
it's part of the
Classic
game.
Plus will be an ongoing server. If you don't have the flight path, go and get the flight path. I mean, it's your character's not going to go anywhere, hopefully. Then again, maybe 1 or 2 flight paths could be added, such as Northern Stranglethorn Vale for Alliance at that Rebel camp, which is just an absolute pain to get to. Overall, though, things are probably okay
it is.
as they are.
It's not too bad, but
Adjusting
yeah,
the way
I
items
agree.
stack in bags to make inventory management easier. Honestly, just buy some better bags. I imagine as the server would go on,
better bags, I agree.
Crafting items, and bags may indeed be one of them. Introducing in-game resources to help players find the right guild for them. I don't think this is theoretically a bad thing, but I don't really know how it would go. At the same time, I do think a lot of people already fall in with a type of guild which is for them. Some people will just see a trade chat guild spamming and they'll join that and that'll be fine, so they just want to be part of something big. There are tryhard people who are going to go looking up guilds on Warcraft logs to see how good they are, to see how fast they clear. They're going to look through everything on their server's Discord, and I don't know how much an in-game tool would end up changing that, so I think it's probably not fine. Reducing the mana cost or increasing the duration of buff spells, for example, Prayer of Fortitude. The big way to perform these would be to make them party or raid wide by default. However, if you do that, you'll lose the interaction of needing consumable items to use the raid wide buffs, which is ultimately losing something from the game, which I think it's not worth taking away for the convenience at this point in time. I wouldn't mind seeing the individual buffs bumped up a bit in duration and lowered on
like they did on SOD. That's perfect.
Isn't quite as painful. Adding flying mounts to Classic era. So I'm going to go back to old school RuneScape real quick. So obviously
No, that doesn't work. Maybe you could maybe add like a special zone, a new special zone that you can use your flying mounts in, but the basic game do not add flying mount. You're just gonna kill PvP if you do that. World PvP is dead after that.
Have a polling system, and part of that responsibility when you're polling your players on updates is you need to know which questions just shouldn't be asked, because you don't want to open Pandora's box and see what's in there. It's not that I have particularly strong feelings for or against them, it's just they don't fit in the world. The world is not built for flying. You go over a mountain and behind it there'd just be a flat bunch of nothing there. Yeah, this just fundamentally doesn't work, and isn't a question that should have ever been asked, if it is indeed real.
I think this is part of the reason why they made Cataclysm, right? When they made Cataclysm, it was an excuse to remake the world, and part of the excuse to remake the world was to remake the world for Flying Mount, right? Because they knew the game was not made for Flying Mount before.
Which, you know, is questionable. Adding summoning stones to dungeon or raid entrances. Actually, yes, I would be in favor
I agree
of this.
with that, to be
so
honest.
Before the inevitable makes the world smaller, retail comments come in. This has just happened too many times to me. I have this philosophy when it comes to wanting to do a dungeon, is that when I'm looking for people for the dungeon, or I'm looking for a group for the dungeon, I go to the dungeon. That way,
there's not many people doing that.
I'm at the dungeon. Not that many people do this, unfortunately. A lot of
just imagine in hardcore, sometime I make a group, right, for like BFD. It's like the earliest dungeon you can make. No, it's not the earliest dungeon you can make, but it's one of the dungeons where I have the most difficulty in recruiting, because some people have not they don't have the flight path for Darnassus to Ashenvale, for example. So you have to wait until these guys come from Elwyn Forest to Iron Forge to Wetlands, take the boat, walk all the way to Ashenvale, then walk to BFD. It takes like about 20 to 30 minutes like to wait for them. Normally what I do is I continue searching for a replacement, and if I find someone that's closer than them, I kick them and I recruit the other one. Like,
look for a group for a dungeon while they'll look for Shadowfang Keep while they're in Ashenvale.
oh, that's another one.
And they're as
Keep. Oh.
humanly far away as they can possibly be, and they don't have any of the flight paths, and you fill their group and they're legitimately about 30 minutes away.
Yeah, I hate that, man. These guys actually tried to replace them. If I find that, I'm like, you don't even give a fuck about us. Normally it's a tank and you have to deal with it because you cannot find another tank, so you just end up waiting for them anyway. But yeah.
On foot. And it's like, well, great, I'm glad I made the effort to come here in advance. I'll just go AFK for 30 minutes so you can get here. And no, I don't particularly want to start a conversation with somebody who just did that to me either. Now, usually this is fine because I play a Warlock, but when I don't play a Warlock, it's actually just painful watching people join the group and be in just a completely different continent. And I've had this experience enough times now, so yes to summoning stones. And it doesn't just have to be summoning stones work now, end of story. You could have, for example, a Warlock that needs to insert shards into a summoning stone to activate it, and then it'll work for a period of time, or something similar with another class.
Because that's another thing. You can say, oh, we could recruit a Warlock, right? And 90% of the time I recruit a Warlock for a group, the Warlock is always the last guy to get at the stone, man. He's always the last guy. So it doesn't matter that we have a tank, an healer, and 2 other DPS that we can summon. No, he's the last one. He's the furthest from the group. He doesn't give a fuck. Like, this guy is not gonna summon us. We have to wait 15 minutes for him, and then we don't even need his summons anymore. Oh my god, that frustrates me. I recruit a Warlock to make the group faster, man.
There, that's an update I would want to see. And in Chronoboons to safely store well buff effects, yes, no brainer. There's no downside to this. That should be in the game. Increasing
definitely.
The size of the quest log. I think understanding your quests and your limitations and what you have accepted and not accepted is kind of the fun part of vanilla questing.
I hate that,
probably
man.
like questing a lot more than the average.
I hate having 20 quests maximum. I do understand why, because they kind of want to force us to complete our quests. But what ends up happening, I just delete them. If I want to do something else, I'm just going to delete my quest. And at some point, I'm just going to be like, where was I? Oh, fuck, I don't have this quest anymore, so now I have to retake it. It's just frustrating, to be honest. I think don't make it infinite, but maybe 25 or 30. Or make certain quests don't go into that. Like, maybe dungeon quests can actually be in their separate section. You just have the dungeon, the daily quest, maybe. I don't know. Just some quest could maybe not take a +1 and it will feel better.
Person, I realize this, but if you have a quest log of, say, 50 different things, you're gonna lose track of what's going on, I can guarantee you. And finally, making mail delivery instant between players. Yes, please? And while you're at it, also make nameplates 42 yards. Thank you.
Oh.
Anyways, those...
Yes! We want that. Yes. The last thing he said. 40-yard nameplates. Oh my god. Why wasn't that in SOD? Why? Just why? I don't get it. This is out of my mind. What the fuck, Blizzard? What the fuck? If there is one thing that doesn't make any change to Classic or almost, it's the fucking nameplates. And the only thing I could see about nameplates being a frustration is if you're in the road trying to hide as a bush, or in a bush, in a bush, and people are starting to walk at you, they will see your nameplate 40 yards away, and they might just change their direction, and you're not going to be able to kill them, right? But they could add something like an SOD, right? In SOD, we have the bush. You can actually transform yourself as a bush, and you don't have your bar anymore. So they can see that the bush is weird, and it's not supposed to be there, so they know there's a player. But if they don't see that, they don't see your nameplate, and they don't know that there's a player, so you can just gank them, have some fun, griefing, right? But that's the only thing. Nameplate 40 should be in the game. Oh my god.
Roller questions.
It's in Burning Crusade, I mean.
To share some thoughts on them. Whether the whole survey is real or not, I think it's just an interesting discussion to have. And who knows, maybe something more comes out of this relatively soon. Let me know your thoughts on everything, what you'd be for, what you'd be against. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening in. And I'll see you all in the next one very soon.
Yeah. Okay, that was a great video. I absolutely like that one. Is the survey real? We don't know. I don't think it's real. I think it was like a pure invention of someone just to maybe spark a conversation about Classic Plus servers. If it is, I think it's smart. I think if the devs actually see that, it might kick in something. It might start a project. Or if the project of Classic Plus is already ongoing, maybe it's gonna make them rethink what they should add in the game, just the discussion we're having right now. So I hope it leads up to somewhere. I really hope the Classic community gets what they want, finally.